Do you ever think about the people who work at the beautiful hotels where you go on vacation? The people who clean your room, who serve your food, who make sure everything is perfect. They work so hard, often for little thanks. They are the invisible engines that make the beautiful machine run. This is a story about a day when one of those invisible people became very, very visible. It is a story about respect. I would like to know, what is the most important quality a good leader should have? Please share your thoughts in the comments. My name is Anna, and my story begins at the most beautiful resort in the world. My grandfather was a great man. He started with one small hotel and turned it into a global chain of the most luxurious resorts. When he passed away, he left his company to me. I was only 25 years old, but my grandfather was a wise man. In his will, he left a special condition. Before I could become the new CEO, I had to spend 1 month working at our flagship resort. And I had to work as a housekeeper, anonymously. You cannot lead the team if you have not been a part of the team, he wrote in his letter to me. The only person at the resort who knew my real identity was the general manager, a kind and professional man named Mr. Garcia. So, for the past 3 weeks, I had not been Anna Sterling, the new owner. I was just Annie, a new member of the housekeeping staff. I wore the simple blue and white uniform. I lived in the small staff dormitory. And I worked harder than I had ever worked in my life. I learned how to make a bed perfectly. I learned how to clean a big, beautiful suite in just 30 minutes. It was hard, tiring work, but it was also the best education I had ever received. I learned about the real problems of the resort. And I learned what it felt like to be treated as an invisible person by the rich and powerful guests. The story I want to tell happened during my last week. It was a beautiful, sunny afternoon. I was working by the main swimming pool. My job was to collect the used towels and keep the area clean. The pool was crowded with beautiful people, all laughing, drinking, and enjoying their perfect vacation. A group of young women at a big, luxurious cabana were the loudest of all. They had been there for hours, and they had made a huge mess. There were wet towels all over the floor, empty glasses, and plates of food. Their leader was a woman named Miss Davenport. She was very beautiful, very rich, and very, very rude. She treated the staff like we were her personal servants. I went over to her cabana with my cart to quietly clean up the mess. As I was picking up the wet towels from the floor, she snapped her fingers at me. It was a loud, ugly sound. "Hey, you," she said, not even looking at me. "My drink is empty. Get me another one." I stood up and looked at her politely. "I am sorry, ma'am," I said. "I am part of the housekeeping staff. The bar staff over there will be happy to help you." My job was to clean, not to serve drinks. She looked at me, her eyes full of an angry disbelief. She was not used to being told no. She gave a small, cruel laugh. Her friends all smiled. "Excuse me," she said, her voice full of ice. "I don't care what your job is. You work here. You're just a maid. So stop being lazy and go and get my drink now." Her words were so full of disrespect. The people in the nearby chairs were all watching. I felt my face turn red with humiliation and anger. Just as I was about to say something, I heard a quick, worried voice. "Is there a problem here?" It was Mr. Garcia, the general manager, in his perfect white suit. He was walking very quickly towards us. Miss Davenport smiled a triumphant, ugly smile. She thought he was coming to help her. "Yes, there is a problem," she said, pointing at me. "Your staff is lazy and disrespectful," but Mr. Garcia did not even look at her. He walked right past her and he came and stood next to me. His face was full of a deep, professional concern, but he was looking at me, not at her. He lowered his voice, but it was still clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. He looked at me, the girl in the simple maid's uniform, and he said the one word that changed everything. He said, "Is everything okay, boss?" The word boss hung in the warm, sunny air. The rude woman, Miss Davenport, just stared at Mr. Garcia, completely confused. "Boss," she said, with a short, ugly laugh. "What are you talking about? She's a maid. Are you crazy?" But her friends were not laughing anymore. They were looking from Mr. Garcia's serious, respectful face to my simple, calm one. They knew something was wrong. Mr. Garcia did not even look at Miss Davenport. He kept his eyes on me. "Miss Sterling," he said, using my real last name, "I am so sorry for this disturbance. I saw the situation from my office window and I came as quickly as I could. Please, tell me what you need." The name Sterling was the final key that unlocked the terrible truth for Miss Davenport, Sterling Resorts. The name was on every towel, every umbrella, every building. Her face, which was so full of arrogant anger, just crumbled. The color drained away, and she was left with a look of pure, horrified shock. She looked at me at my simple blue uniform, and she finally understood. I was not a maid. I was the owner. I was her boss's boss's boss. The people sitting by the pool had heard everything. A wave of quiet whispers spread through the area. "That's Anna Sterling, the new owner." Everyone was staring. Miss Davenport was frozen, the center of a very public, very quiet, and very terrible moment of humiliation. I finally spoke. My voice was not the quiet, polite voice of Annie the housekeeper. It was a new voice, a voice of quiet, calm authority. I looked first at my manager. "Thank you, Mr. Garcia," I said. "Everything is under control. Could you please just ask someone to come and clean this area? Our other guests deserve a clean and peaceful environment." I then turned and I looked directly into the terrified eyes of Ms. Davenport. "Ms. Davenport," I said, my voice still quiet, but so cold and so clear that everyone could hear. "My grandfather built this company on two principles. The first was to give our guests a perfect and luxurious experience. The second and more important principle was to treat every single member of our staff with dignity and respect." I looked at the mass of towels and glasses on the floor. "It seems you have enjoyed the first principle, but you have completely failed at the second. You have treated a member of my team with a complete lack of respect. And that is something I will not tolerate in any of my resorts." She started to speak, to apologize. I am so sorry. I had no idea," she stammered. I held up my hand, and she was silent. "It does not matter if you had an idea or not," I said. "A person's character is shown by how they treat the people they think are not important. You have shown me your character, and it is not welcome here." I gave her my final instruction. "Your vacation at Sterling Resorts is over," I said, my voice final. "Mr. Garcia will have your bags packed and sent to the front desk. A car will be ready to take you to the airport in 1 hour. We will, of course, give you a full refund for your stay. We do not want your money," and with that, I turned my back on her. I did not wait for her reply. I started to walk away with Mr. Garcia, leaving her there, completely speechless and humiliated in front of everyone. The quiet little maid had just fired the rich, important guest. As I walked away from the pool with Mr. Garcia, I could feel hundreds of eyes on my back. The guests were whispering. My coworkers, the other housekeepers, were just staring, their faces a mix of shock and fear. The friend who had trained me, a kind woman named Maria, looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. I knew that in that one moment, our easy, normal friendship had been broken. I was not her friend Annie anymore. I was her boss. This was my new, and most difficult, problem. The news of what had happened spread through the resort like a wildfire. The maid is the new owner. She was working undercover. She fired Miss Davenport. By the time I had changed out of my uniform and into my simple, normal clothes, the whole resort knew who I was. The staff I would pass in the hallway would stop talking. They would look at the floor, too scared to look at me. The friendly, open atmosphere I had loved was gone, and in its place was fear and a new, awkward distance. I knew I could not let this continue. That evening, I asked Mr. Garcia to call a meeting for all the resort staff. Not in a fancy ballroom, but in their own simple dining hall. When I walked in, the room was full, and it was completely silent. Hundreds of employees, my team, were all staring at me, waiting. I walked to the front of the room. I was so nervous. "Hello, everyone," I said, my voice a little shaky. "My name is Anna Sterling." But for the past month, many of you have known me as Annie. I looked at my friends from the housekeeping team. First, I want to say I am sorry. I am sorry for the secret. I was not trying to trick you. I was trying to follow my grandfather's final wish. I told them the whole story. I told them about my grandfather's will and his rule that I had to work as one of them before I could lead them. He wanted me to understand your lives, I explained. And I have. I have cleaned the hundreds of rooms. I have felt the back pain after a 10-hour day. I have seen your incredible hard work. And today, I felt the disrespect you sometimes have to face from our guests. I looked at them, my heart full of a real, honest respect for them. You were not just my colleagues, I said, you were my friends. You were kind to me when you thought I was a nobody with a difficult job, and I will never, ever forget that. I may be the owner of this company now, but I will always be your friend. Then, I started to talk about the future. Today was a bad day for this resort, I said. But it is also the beginning of a new day. From now on, things are going to change. We are starting a new sterling respect policy. No employee will ever have to accept disrespectful behavior from a guest again. We will always protect our team. A small, surprised murmur went through the room. We are also going to invest more in our team, I continued. We are going to improve the staff housing. We are going to raise your wages, and we are going to create new opportunities for you to grow in this company. I looked out at all their hopeful faces. I did not just learn how to be a housekeeper in the last month. I learned that the heart of this company is not the fancy rooms or the beautiful pools. It is you. You are the heart, and I promise you, I will be a leader who protects that heart. When I finished, the room was quiet for a moment. And then one person, my friend Maria, started to clap. And then the whole room erupted in a huge, happy, and powerful applause. They were cheering for their new boss. They were cheering for their friend. And I knew I had passed my grandfather's most important test. My month of working as Annie the housekeeper was over. The next week, I flew to the company's headquarters in New York to officially become the CEO of Sterling Resorts. I walked into the huge, top-floor office. It had a giant desk and a view of the entire city. My grandfather's office. It was now my office. The first thing I did was I took the simple blue and white housekeeper's uniform I had worn, and I had it framed. I hung it on the wall right behind my big, important desk. It was a reminder. A reminder of where I came from, and a reminder of the kind of leader I wanted to be. I kept every promise I made to my team in that dining hall. We raised the wages for all our employees in every one of our resorts around the world. We built new, comfortable housing for our staff. And we implemented the Sterling Respect policy. Every employee was now empowered to stand up to rude guests. And they knew that the company and their CEO would always have their back. The company changed. It became a happier, healthier, and more respectful place to work. And because our employees were happy, our guests were even happier. Our resorts became famous not just for their luxury, but for their incredible, genuine kindness. Our business became more successful than ever before. We proved that a company with a good heart could also be a very successful one. A year after that day at the pool, I was visiting that same resort again. This time, everyone knew who I was. But I was not there for a fancy inspection. I was there to have lunch. I did not eat in the expensive restaurant. I ate in the staff dining hall with the housekeepers, the gardeners, and the cooks with my friends. I sat with Maria, the woman who had trained me, and we laughed about our old memories. As I was sitting there, I saw a new, young housekeeper. She looked so young, so nervous, so tired. She reminded me of myself, just 1 year ago. I walked over to her. "Hello," I said with a warm smile. "My name is Anna. How is your first week going?" The girl's eyes went wide. She knew who I was. It is hard work, Miss Sterling," she said, her voice a little shaky. I just smiled. "I know," I said. "It is the hardest and the most important job in this whole resort. Thank you for your hard work. We are so happy to have you on our team." The look of surprised, happy pride on her face was the greatest reward in the world. That rude woman at the pool had called me just a maid. She thought it was an insult, but now I see it as a badge of honor. I am proud of the time I spent as a maid. It was the most important education I ever received. My grandfather did not just leave me a company, he left me a powerful lesson. He taught me that to be a great leader, you must first learn to serve. If this story about respect and leadership was meaningful to you, please give this video a like. What do you think is the best way to show respect for people who do service jobs? Share your ideas in the comments.